Hello, this is Lisa Lee and welcome to this week's enrichment reading. We're going to be looking at themes related to this full moon in Aquarius. The reason that this is so significant is because this full moon in Aquarius that's happening right now is sort of a foreshadowing. It's a I forget what it's called, but I was looking at this before I started this reading, and there is an eclipse season in 2027 where Aquarius is in 17 degrees. And this full moon in Aquarius is in 17 degrees. And so there's something about the beginning and the end, like the end cap. Like we started our tribulations, for lack of a better way of putting it, in 2020. And so this whole 7-year period was always going to be the fall of the empire and the rise of something new. And so what we're going to be looking at with this reading is sort of almost tapping into that kind of future forecast kind of a it's very interesting because this is the Lionsgate portal time loop, and so being able to kind of like tap into like the beginning and the end, or like the beginning of the end, which I think this full moon in Aquarius marks the beginning of the end. And so when we get to the end, I think we can kind of see a little bit of like future forecasting this way. Why is this important? So everything about the themes of this full moon, the beginning of the end, cover the stuff that we've been like hammering over and over and over in the readings by way of authenticity. The death rattle of the evil empire, the narcissistic meltdown, freak out, like all the things that kind of held up the old structures and everything that made sense in the old structures, and everybody that, I had all that indoctrination from the old structures, that conditioning from the old structures, everything's sort of falling apart, and it falls apart around like being authentic. And we've been doing that so much. We've been hammering that home so much because it is crucial. We're not going to do it in the same way. We're going to be looking at this, in a place of love for ourselves, love for the gods. We are going to be tapping into this from a perspective of letting the gods kind of help, like I'd say even like love on us a little bit, build us up a little bit, because the themes of this full moon are going to be, take the masks off. What do you see? What are you like? Like all these, like these, that sort of a thing. And what I'd rather do with this is have it be, what do the gods see? You need this positive mirroring. We all need positive mirroring. So what are the gods seeing when they look at your true form? When they see you in terms of like your Akashic record, how would they speak of your authentic self? Like what would they almost tell you about what they see? Because I feel like a need for some cosmically divine mirroring. And so what quality has never changed about you across the lifetimes? What truths do the gods and God want to illuminate for you, so you can kind of work with that in terms of hope, and what strength or gift that is in your record that's ready to come alive as you make this move between like where we are now, the beginning of the end, and where we kind of end up. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else there. Yeah, like what do the gods see that you've not seen for yourself? And what will you receive if you are walking in alignment with the eternal you? And I think the last thing that I kind of want to touch on is, how is your current moment planting seeds for the creation of the new you? Because this is a new you kind of a thing. Like we are dealing with like the death of the old and the birth of the new. So with that, let's go ahead and get some cards, and we're kind of starting with I'm drawn to use this deck first because I want to just sort of see like overall, what do the gods want to tell you in the way of next chapter, because this is the beginning of the end. We've closed out a lot of stuff. The reckonings have reckoned, and now there's a lot of numb states, like in the face of what is like, oh, there's so much there. So let's go ahead and get a card out, just sort of a general message from the gods as we enter into this reading. From gods. So, the gods again are going to be all the aspects of the divine. The divine itself is going to be like the whole. And so whatever you're more comfortable with, that is what I want you to think about in terms of where you're receiving. So I'm going to the God within, the gods and goddesses of ascended form. Confidence is your key to success. Yeah. Yellow is significant. I just felt that actually. And there's yellow like in all three places here. The lion. Okay, so let's see it. The lion right now, we are on Lionsgate, 888. So the lion as a bookend on either end of this, kind of the beginning of the end. So the beginning sort of marks like one half of the bookend, and the end marks the other half of the bookend, and here's the time to take action. And so what we are doing right now with your commitment is being tested. Never fun, right? Nobody wants their commitment tested. But what we are doing right now in terms of confidence is your key to success. That's where we're entering. Time to take action is what you do with that confidence as you move into the world and put yourself on display in one way or another. And then don't let your pride get in your way is kind of a warning. And so with your commitment is being tested, let's take a look at the particulars around this. And so I want to start with looking at the particulars around this, but also asking the gods to show us with the confidence is your key to success. With this card about your confidence, what do they see in you in terms of your true form that they want you to take with you as sort of like an emblem of like what you should be feeling confident about? How do they see you as like having something that you should feel totally confident regarding? You want to see something cool because it was just wobbling? So there's something that I've had forever. I've had this forever. This has been with me since I found it in a, I think it was like a temple sale in somewhere in New York City. There was a temple sale. It was like a, you know, used clothing, used things. And I picked this up because it called to me and it had this sort of like energetic resonance. And it has been on my altar because again it has an energy that I recognize as divine, and I've never been able to sort of place it, but it has been on my altar as like the nameless goddess. It has been it, you know, it has just sort of like been around me. Like it has, I've kind of like had it as like a little relic that I never really knew what it meant. And recently my sister went to Greece because she goes sort of often. We are Greek in part, and she sent me a postcard, and the postcard she sent me was this. And so I kind of want to show you just how similar these two things are. This is the postcard that she sent, and this is, what did she even say here? Oh, yeah. And this is the figure. And the figure has almost like a Victorian look to it. And so when you think about the gods that travel with you, there are ways in which they don't always take the form of something ancient. Sometimes they take the form of something a little bit modern. And so one of the first things that I'm seeing about you is you have a divine, very divine quality that is modern but ancient. And that's one of the first things that they want to point out here with the confidence is your key, is this is not your first run of things. Like you're no spring chicken is kind of what I'm getting. And so the first thing that we're seeing is you're no spring chicken. You are ancient, and you carry with you an ancient code of wisdom. And this is one of the earliest goddesses. I have to look it up again because when I got it, I was like shocked, and I ran over and I kind of put the two things together. With the Knight of Cups being about an offer of love, an incoming offer of love. Okay, let's take a look at this. A Six of Swords being about a move, which does not surprise me. That King of Swords, walking away, taking action. So I am getting that you, oh, the Devil. Never one that I want to see. Okay, with King of Cups being about like your solitude and your value and what you're holding, but the Devil here is interesting. This is a little bit of a challenging kind of a moment. So with your commitment being tested, there's something here that is being sort of like worked out. King of Cups, let me take a look at this. I'm almost picturing, this is feeling like a foreign energy, actually. This isn't feeling like you. So there's something about this King of Cups that is not you, but it informs you. That's interesting. So that's almost speaking to your influences. So I'm getting very powerfully that your influence, like your main influence, wants to come in and kind of speak to you sort of directly about what your confidence is and how they see you. So it's not even that the gods want you to know how you're seen. There's this energy of the King of Cups that travels with you that wants you to have a better sense of what you look like and how you should be, like how you should perceive yourself given how they perceive you, what they think you're capable of and what you think you're capable of. Let me just kind of gaze at this a little bit. Because you've got a King of Swords here. But this is how you communicate language. So the King of Cups is your inspirer, your divine genius, this energy that is sort of informing the next phase of things. And this is an offer of love, but there is a call to walk away from something here. And with the Eight of Cups, it's going to be something that there was emotional investment in. Walking away with the Eight of Cups means that you have accumulated 8 cups of effort and happiness and like wanting to do a certain thing and hoping for it and praying for it and praying for it and hoping for it. And it's not, you can't keep it. You have to kind of walk away. You have to be willing to walk away. And so this action that is being taken, this offer of love that is being taken, being offered actually rather, related to like, you know, you step into your confidence, taking that offer from the divine to work with this energy that wants to, I almost feel like like there's an engineering kind of a thing about it. Like there's something about engineering coming through here. I wouldn't worry about that. And I think that part of what it is to step into this confidence is to know that you're helped, you're informed, you're inspired, and there's an energy that really wants to work with what it is to open you up to a greater depth of being and expressing. And this is an energy that knows everything about like the emotional landscape of the universe. And so it's a love energy. It's an emotional body. It's kind of like a Poseidon in an ascended aspect. And it's important to understand that there's shadow and light to everything. And so you're going to figure out where you are. But that ascended aspect of an emotional God, a mastery over the currents and the oceans and the emotions. And so you are being offered love. But this does not come out without a caveat. And that caveat is like this love and accepting it and receiving it does mean walking away from some sort of emotional investment that acts like an attachment. So I want to talk a little bit about what attachments are, because we play a lot of games with storylines and stories, and that's all well and good, but you know, we kind of ignore the nuts and bolts of what attachments actually are and what attachments are not. What attachments are habits. What attachments are not are often like personified energies that are going to get you and they're going to eat you, and that's just the way that it is. When I say that attachments are habits, it's something that takes your life force from you, takes your creative energy from you, takes your hope from you, and that can be an energy with proposals and, you know, like things that sort of come into your attention that you feel like you're fighting with, that you feel like you have to fight with. There's a struggle and you don't know what to do. And that's the unconscious mind being personified. But when the unconscious mind is not being personified, when it's not being projected into a form that you're interacting with, and that's kind of what, like we always have the power over this, then it ends, and that can be very tricky. That can be like a trickster sort of way of circumventing you or getting you to look away from the very facts of the matter, which is that attachments are habits. You're attached to habits that siphon your potential more than anything else. And so maybe that habit is arguing with somebody or something. Maybe that habit is feeling powerless when you actually can take the power. Maybe that habit is your attention being drawn away from you over and over and over again. When we've been in high control situations, marriages, religions, that's always going to like redirect your attention out of you and into an external compliance. And so when we're really, really used to that, and it's in the absence of that, we'll often kind of invent it. And so it can take the form of habits that we don't understand are sort of driving us in the same directions and in the same circles without with a different story, or it can be a habit of looking for a defense to be making, looking for a blame to cast. Like we have a lot of things that sort of drain us. And so when we think about this Eight of Cups, what's coming up very powerfully for me is like influences that are like that take the form of habits that's what an attachment is. And so how do we put that down? Let's take a look and see what the guides want to say about what your Eight of Cups process of kind of walking away from something that is siphoning your confidence. It's affecting your confidence. It's telling you a story about powerlessness instead of a story about powerfulness. And we operate through stories. Stories are the containers for your faith that then manifest as reality. So you have to think about theory of mind, you have to think about consciousness as a construct, and when we think about the physics of how we move energy from one place to another in terms of what becomes, again, that the container for your faith is the stories that you're telling yourself. And so habits, again, are stories that we tell ourselves, and they're habitual. So sometimes they don't even take a story form. They just drive us. And so to move away from that, let's take a look at what that means. Because the devil here sort of indicates that too. It's like the devil, again, is an attachment. It's a habit. You can't overcome it. You can't stop thinking like this. You can't stop reverting to that kind of behavior. You can't stop acting in this role. You can't stop, like, there's all that stuff with habits. And so with the healing powers, growth, amends, release, personal development, inherited issues, habits, self-doubt, generational trauma, habits. It becomes habitual, that conditioning, shame, sensitivity. And like sensitivity is good, but sensitivity you can kind of go nuts with sensitivity a little bit. If you don't have that center of gravity, if you don't have that framework worked out ahead of time, you can be taking everything that is offered to you as true or false, or even like some mix of both, but it's not the same as kind of getting really clear on what you believe. So there is something to release here, especially with self-doubt and the 8th house. Let me just put this right here. Empowerment. So empowerment and confidence and success, like that's all part and parcel. There's stuff to release right now in a big way. Hold on 1 second. I'm just gonna... Okay. I had to stop for a second and come back. I'm just looking at this. With this 8 of Cups here under this Knight of Cups. So I see this Knight of Cups as emerging out of from a place of taking a lot of responsibility for, in one way or another, other people's stuff. Getting your value from like other things besides just sort of that innate knowing. But with the empowerment card, I'm going to say that a big part of what you're meant to let go of as you move into this place of confidence for yourself is stories of disempowerment. And that's tricky. Why is that an attachment? Why would the stories that park you in a place of feeling completely disempowered feel truer to you? Like, why does that have the faith so powerfully and the belief so powerfully than a story that says you can overcome anything? And a lot of that has to do with like social exchange and goals that are set not by you and not as part of what you were purposed to do, but set by like society and standards, so that you fail at those goals and then think there is no divine like help at all. So a lot of times when we sort of set a certain goal, or we want a certain thing, and then we want it more than anything, and we try more than that, like we do everything we can, we bet our life on this thing, and this thing being true, or this hope coming true, and then it doesn't, and we feel like there's no cause to hope that there's any power in our life because we went after it with all of our heart, soul, and mind. It didn't come to fruition, therefore we failed. The gods didn't do it for us, we didn't do it for, there's all sorts of stuff around like effort to reward ratio equaling the divinity or the lack of the divinity, and that's just not it. That's the exchange model. So what I'm looking at here in terms of feeling like you can be powerful despite circumstances, that there are always ways to be powerful in the circumstances and therefore have power despite whatever it looks like. I'm just looking closely at this because it's a little tricky. Let me see. Especially with intimacy and healing, there's something to walk away from that requires some healing around intimacy. Not just healing around intimacy, but this 8th house, like where have you put investments? I gave my life for this. I did this for this, and it didn't happen. That's sort of what I'm seeing here. Like I pick up on that a little bit. I'm also picking up on like betrayal equals like loss of faith. Betrayal is hard because you can have so much faith in someone and so much faith in something and find out that that was not true or that you were misled, and that betrayal, that feeling of betrayal, like it does shake your sense of faith in the world and faith in God's. But there's a healing that has to happen around this, and there's also a walking away from stories of powerlessness. Because things can happen that disappoint us, and things can happen that put us in positions we weren't expecting to be, or put us in a vantage point or perspective that is different. There's lots of stuff that comes along in terms of our where we put our investments. What are we actually seeking, and what are the chances of actually getting what we're seeking? And when it doesn't work out, like what does that mean about faith versus what does that just mean about that was maybe not the right road? And is maybe not the right road ever really a thing when everywhere that you're going requires like chessboard moves, like not a linear journey, but Trojan horse to Trojan horse to Trojan horse to thing that you were meant to have all along. So like we can be like, oh, I invested in the wrong stuff, but it's really part of what's getting you where you're going. And so we can always say that there's no cause for faith and that there is no power and it's all powerless, but that's not taking into account the fact that the future is uncertain. The future is unknown. And then that means that there is therefore always a possibility that there will be power if you are in a locked room. The future always holds the possibility of finding the key. And so when there's cause to walk away from all stories of powerlessness, it's an investment in the future instead of an investment in believing that everything about the past determines the future. And so that's part of it. Like, I feel like that's part of it. I think part of what it is for you to pick up your confidence and walk with it is to stop diagnosing the capacity for the future to meet your needs based on feelings of having been harmed before or having those needs not met before. Especially when needs are a funny thing we have to recalibrate around what needs are, because there's been so much exploitation of needs. That's what the definition, like if you were to try to actually really define extraction, it's a exploitation of needs. So there's a lot of pain there because there's a lot of systemic, disgusting stuff that is thankfully we're in that 7-year period of tribulation where everything old is falling away. Empire is falling. It is the end of their world. It is the end of their empire, and it is the end of their God. But it is not the end for like what's happening is the future is some other new God. It's some new worldview. It's some new belief systems. It's the end of one story and the beginning of another. And so walk away from any projections because you can't possibly project what's going to be available for you. And so you're in this tricky period of what does it mean to be in this space where you can't really predict the future because it's going to be so transformed, because it's already transforming faster than we can even wrap our heads around it. So predictions aren't going to be like operational in the same way, and it doesn't have to spell doom. Not being able to really like see how whatever is going to, we see that the falling down of I see London bridges falling down. We see the falling down of the structure that took us from one place to another, but we can't imagine something new. And so that's a very liminal space, and that's a really kind of a scary place, but it is the beginning of the end. And so with this 8th house of intimacy about like, where did you have your emotions invested? What contracts, with society were you counting on? You were counting on a contract that said, if I pay my taxes, my children will have a quality education in a school. That contract might not be something you can count on. And that doesn't mean that you can't count on something coming through and being an amazing alternative. But you have to walk away from an emotional investment that says you can somehow control this, or that you need to, or that you should, because there's a real shift in a way that there never has been before. So you have to be able to look at the stuff that is falling down and say, oh, there's a creative opportunity. This presents as an attack, but it's actually an opportunity. Sex and erotic capital is interesting because we have gender roles falling apart. And also, like, what's the value of cheap sex? What's the value of poisoned food? Very little. So how do we regain what it means to put that in a sacred space without turning it into some sort of like purity, like toxicity? Secrets and mysteries, we're looking at a world where we're not going to be able to tell what is AI and what is real. We haven't faced the mysteries in this way for a very long time. We've been in a material world, scientific material worldview, and we're entering what is almost going to be like a new veil of misinformation. And so we're going to have to operate by resonance or alone. And what opportunities are available to us as people are going to have a lot to do with how we resonate. Because we're not doing as much in person, we're doing a lot more in line. So that personal voice, that personal authentic stamp, that resonance is going to be super important in ways it never used to be. And so what are we investing in when we make ourselves to be presentable? Because that resonance is actually, it's a magical component. But the secrets and mysteries are really, really interesting, because what's going to resonate with you and what's not going to resonate with you. That's going to determine the paths and what's available to you on those paths, and and other paths. And so it's not going to be the same as the way that we work with the boots on the ground in the way that we used to. And then regaining some of like what it means to value a mystery, to work with mystery, to feel comfortable with mystery. There's obsessions and inheritance here, and stalking in the underworld. And so when the line blurs between the conscious and the unconscious mind, we get this bleed over. And right now with AI technology, with not being able to tell what is real and what is not real, we're having this bleed over when it comes to experiences of the underworld. So there's a lot of stuff going on, because the underworld is unconscious, collective unconscious, which means like spooky things, you know what I mean, manifesting in the material. That's a bleed over. And also like having like instances of like reality, not reality, that's going to be a bleed over between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind, like aspects of psychosis. And so we do have this healing time. And like when I say healing time, I really hear people being like, it's been horrible forever, healing, you know, I get it, you know, I do. But I do think that like what we can look forward to, or at the beginning of the end, what we can look forward to at the beginning of the end is that we can expect good, wonderful, new things. With confidence is your key. Invest in faith, not in fear, not in war, not in the certainty of end that is going to somehow crush you, but in the certainty of what you are connected to in the way of divine inspiration, in the certainty of what you're connected to in the way of the relationships that you cultivate, the certainty of what you are connected to in the way that in the relationship that you have with your own self, and your own knowledge of your potential and your capacity, and that conversation and that richness of developing your inner world so that it sustains you and brings like forth inspiration and communication. The healing stuff here is that like it means that something here with the 8th house has been badly wounded. Your investments have been badly wounded. The intensity in which life has been throwing things at you is wounding you. You feel overcome by assaults. Those contracts that you were counting on, it's wounding. Sex and erotic capital, it's like, you know, what is it to be attracted to someone? What is it to have someone attracted to you? What is the payoff in all of that? And what is really even realistic? Like that's gonna be something we need healing around. Secrets and mysteries, when we've all been like counting on the truth to set us free. And now we're facing a sea of mystery and secrets that we have to somehow get comfortable with, because we have to develop that resonance muscle even more. Ouch, right? That needs healing as well. So obsessions around inheritance, like who am I? What am I going to get in life? Is there really anything taking care of me? If there is, like, what is it? You know, this is where we have your commitment is being tested. Faith, there's new, amazing, cool things to discover, and everything's like wildly, brimming with opportunity. Even if it looks like scary change equals new stuff or new experiences, which is better than new stuff and usually leads to new stuff anyway. So the God here, this King of Cups, and saying, I have a gift of love for you. I'm handing you it. I'm doing it in a way of friendship. It's not overbearing. This King of Cups is very respectful. And they're saying, I want to offer you some love, but I'm not going to offer you love if you're going to be tripping out on the acid of the ghosts of Christmas past, dictating every year that we're going to have. I don't want to relive that story. I don't want to talk about your powerlessness. And so this healing here with this intimacy with self and this intimacy with your voyage, that's where we have the Six of Swords and we have the Knight of Swords. And I hear Calabunga. I don't know what Calabunga. What is that? Is that like Bart Simpson? Calabunga dude or something? So there's this maybe think about where you were when the phrase Calabunga was being uttered. When is that phrase? There's something about a Bart Simpson t-shirt, a long Bart Simpson t-shirt, and it says something like Calabunga dude, and how your guys are saying that you're being restored to the version of yourself probably 11, 12, 13 years old where there was a major interruption. And so this guide, this beautiful God, this King of Cups is saying listen, we're restoring you. We're doing a computer reset. And I'm seeing a computer time machine I don't know if you've ever like screwed up your computer and like the solution ended up being set the time machine back, the time machine button, like 3 days earlier before the virus or something like that, and then you can restore your computer to that spot. So there's something about you getting like a reset at the level of like your guides are bringing you back to that place of development. And that Six of Swords and that Knight of Swords, they're bringing you to Calabunga. There's some Calabunga thing here. And so you're set to heal. You're still on your healing journey. This empowerment here related to your confidence has a lot to do with that. There's some soreness here with this Hermit. This is like, you know, no more Hermit, right? But this Eight of Pentacles says we're still working. Yeah, this is a quality in you that has never changed though. So with your empowerment, so the confidence here is about your empowerment. This is where you're going to be strong and forceful, and that's going to be the vitality, you know, authority, allies, you know, overrides. This is good. Empowerment is good. It's a key. I see a key opening your doors, opening every door you want to go through. And your guides are saying, here's all the doors to all the locations that you've been asking for. Here's a key. This is it, but it's empowerment, and that empowerment feeds the confidence. The confidence ends up being the key, but the empowerment is what manifests that from being a like elusive thing into a thing that you can do stuff with. And so with this Knight of Cups and this Eight of Cups, you're going to walk away from all the stories of empowerment, all the stories of disempowerment, because we're moving towards empowerment. That's the card here. And we're moving towards an empowerment that gives us confidence. That's the card here. And this is the Leo 888. This is where we're in. We're going to manifest this. But one of the things that your guide wants to kind of talk about in terms of love in you, because the masks you have to walk away from. And the masks have to do with false promises. Those false promises have to do with wish fulfillment and what it means to be driven by those wishes, those motivations, by, you know, those desires. So there's walk away from a lot with the 8th house stuff. Study about the 8th house. Even if you don't have an 8th house placement, you have some relationship to the 8th house. So study about the 8th house and how that, go through and do some journal prompts with the 8th house. Because the healing here is all around what it means for you to reinvest, for you to step back into vitality and intensity, to like begin to construct contracts with life. That's going to be your rituals in your day that yield to an outcome. Get comfortable with mysteries and secrets. That means you're really secure with yourself. The obsessions and the inheritance, what am I going to get? What am I not going to get? That has to be worked on, and especially in terms of stalking in the underworld. And nothing to be scared of, because that's kind of fun, actually. If you think about it, right? With healing, everything that we mentioned there has like a healing slant. There's a healing aspect. There's some healing to that. And so that's the healing journey here, and it really necessitates, what are the habits, what are the attachments that you have to stories of powerlessness? And you can be fighting with that. I can see someone like fighting about, you know, I am powerless. Look around. Look at where I'm at. Look at what they did to me. Look at what happened to me. Look at what's going on with me. And your guide, your King of Cups is saying, would you pick your head up away from that stuff? That's an old story that is drawing you back in. You're investing in it by sitting there and having tea with it, by talking to it at dinner. You talk to it at dinner time. You talk to it in the morning when you don't want to get up. You're talking to the situation all day long when you can't see an out. And your guides are saying, just divert your attention. There's a habitual pull of your attention in that direction that keeps solidifying those routes. So we're talking about roads being built in your brain, conditioning. And so your guides are saying, you know, take the cup of love that's on offer and come with me somewhere new. And so you can take action on what it means to express yourself in this confident place. And the thing that is about you, that is always about you, that's always going to be about you, and that's not going to change about you, is this hermit quality. And so let's look at what that hermit quality means, because it says here's where your work is. You got work there, work to do. Your commitment is being tested. What does that mean? What's going to test your commitment here? Should we ask what is going to test your commitment here? Yes. Yes, we should. Okay. What is going to test your commitment here with this offer of love? This King of Cups is like, I'm here to love you. I'm here to help you into this new next phase of development. You got to let go of all the habits. I don't want to hang out with you in your habits. I want to hang out with you. And you got to bring in some healing here with all of that stuff. Go do the 8th house healing shuffle. do it and write something or sing something or make something with that whole journey that you take with that 8th house inquiry, and then share yourself with that. Because that's a good way of, you know, empowerment here. It's work, gotta do some work. Take charge, that's it, right? And so your commitment is being tested with the take charge. What does that mean? You're committed to yourself and your life path and everything that you want and everything that you're gonna get. What does take charge mean in that scenario? Take charge in that scenario means that you have to constantly recalibrate around not having control over the situation. Take charge indicates that you don't have it. And so stories of powerlessness, it's going to be rhetoric that keeps you from taking charge in any meaningful way, because you can't, because your hands are tied, because there's no food and there's no money and there's no help. News flash. Let's read this one. It says, life is seriously temporary and can always change in the blink of an eye. So if you're reading this, you're lucky enough to wake up to another day. Try not to be an ungrateful brat. Now these cards are mean, they're cute and mean, that's kind of the shtick with them, but I do like this because when it comes to taking charge, it's a creative process. Taking charge is not about acquisition, hold it, you know, wrangle it, don't let it go, force it into place, you know, talk it into submission, you know, beat it over the head with like, you know, with rhetoric. It's not like, you know, make it happen, work for it, no pain, no gain. Like, that's not what it is. That's not take charge. Take charge is not being in ahead of things and you can't, you know, no, you can tell everyone to do and they have to listen. That's not take charge. Take charge isn't being right and everybody agrees and now you're right and they're wrong. That's not take charge. Take charge is be creative with where you feel like there aren't opportunities, make them. Where you feel like there is not hope, like rig it. You know, and so the Hermit card here I like for you because the gods are saying, like, you know, this beautiful quality that you have, that you've had every lifetime that you've ever lived, because it's really refined, it's really powerful, is that aspect of the mystic. That means like you got an edge over everybody else in terms of like healing this issue with mysteries and secrets. So instead of mysteries and secrets being some scary, horrible, no good, you can be like, I thrive in the face of mystery. Mystery is my breakfast. Mystery is what I love to do, right? So now we're like thinking about feeling trapped with no options. And all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, what appears for us is that you are good with mysteries. You love mysteries. You can work with mysteries. You can study mysteries. You can dabble in the mysteries. You can have mysterious experiences that you then relay. There's a lot that communication is bringing that has never been there before. Superpowers with communication. And so investing in this new thing that is what it means for you to operate with the concept of mystery, because you've probably done pretty well with operating with the concept of like exchange, because that's what we've been conditioned to. That's where our powerlessness stories come in. I don't have this, so I can't have that. Yes, but we have something else that you can have that has nothing to do with those other things. Get out of that exchange and get into the creativity. And that's where the Hermit comes in really handy, because the Hermit is going to the Hermit is go within. Connect with the gods within. That's like one of the best things you can do. The version of yourself that is infinite, that has already lived your lives, that knows you, that is you. I connect with the God that is within, and I ask that God to direct me. Where is the light in this darkness where I cannot find my way? I was talking with Hecate. I was talking to somebody about Hecate. I was actually talking to a spirit about Hecate. And I said, when you're going through the valley of death, you look for the fireflies in the eyes of the damned, and that's going to be the light that guides you. If there's no other light, that's what you're looking for. If there's no other way, you're going to be going by the fireflies in the eyes of the damned, where you are and what's around you. There's a lot that goes into what it is to think about that as opportunity. When you're looking around and you're like, over there's a disco ball for somebody else, and that's effed up. And it is, but that disco ball is just as blinding and just as distracting, and they're worse off than you. At least you're on a path following those little lights. They're spinning out in incoherence so grand that when they, there's an afterlife cost to that sort of a thing. And so with the Knight of Cups and there's a life cost to that sort of thing too. With the Knight of Cups and the Eight of Cups, The offer on love for you also requires a relinquishment of the attachments, aka habits, that have been driving you previous to now, and a reconnection with that version of yourself that is actually not that far away. Cowabunga dude, Bart Simpson, summer of 9, 10, 11, 12, 10, 11, 12, 13, like that little section. You're getting a restart or renewal, and that old, like whatever has been sort of configured from that, like we're doing something with that. And so this Hermit though is, how do you reconnect with the essence of who you were meant to be and what your potential was before you were directed elsewhere? And how do you then take action on that? So let's ask that question, because take charge here is also the Knight of Swords energy. Let me just scoot this over so you get more of the cards. So take charge here is also the Knight of Swords energy. And we're going to go in and look at this taken action here. Now, we've been taught that taken action is like going at it, making it happen, scoring your goal, you know, like winning, win, win, win. Like, and like, you know, get the thing, get the money, get the partner, you know, car, house, kids, you know, all the stuff that is like sale, grab it now, that we're kind of like, you know, infected with when we sort of just, you know, arrive on the scene. Like what happens to us when we're like 10, 11, 12, 13. That's when we develop who we are going to be based on our archetypal preferences. We figure out who our gods are that year, that series of years. And then those gods influence us. You know, and that might be beauty standard, aka, you know, toxic romantic love instead of real romantic love. That might be cool kid, aka status, you know, instead of like actual like regard and recognition. Like there's all these counterfeits that show up to divert you and bring you into disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, and have you self-abandoning away from your purpose. That this correction, this court, and I heard court correction, but course correction, court correction, whatever this court correction is. So there's something about that Aquarius in 17 degrees, and then the eclipse season in 2027, 17 degrees. I'm hearing court order. That's significant for somebody. So with that Six of Swords and that Knight of Swords and that Hermit card, you know, you guys are like, you've got a superpower, mystic, comfortable with the mysteries, liking the secrets. There's some, you know, some kind of like not totally freaked out by the existence of the underworld. Never mind some familiar aspect of your unconscious mind. There are words that like will not come out of my mouth. This is just a truth about my auditory processing disorder. Okay, so with the Maiden here, this is actually striking me as like that erotic capital, the sex stuff. There's some healing here with that, especially with the Starborn. So you're different, you know, you're different. One of the things that so your guys are saying that, you know, the Hermit card, we're talking about a spiritual person, and I'm seeing a high priestess, I'm seeing a prophet, I'm seeing a shaman, I'm seeing a mystic, and I'm seeing the Maiden here. And so we've got an offer of love for you. You got to walk away from the old story about what is love, baby, don't hurt me no more. So I heard that like coming real loud. Starborn. So this is kind of interesting. This means we're gonna have like a little bit of fun about prospects. What's the prospects? You know, dating apps. Blech. No. Who wants to do that? Nobody. Somebody made a bad app and now everybody dates by it. Somebody who didn't have any imagination. Somebody who lacked coherence about like the actual ecosystem of social interaction. Somebody who lacks coherence on the actual science of different aspects of attraction. Somebody who just lacks imagination made a game instead of like something more enriched for people to like work with in terms of meeting each other. And now we have systemic failure at the level of stupid games instead of smart socializing. So I put that in this reading, and I say that to be like, you have so many inventions to make that have to do with what this emotional intelligence has to offer you with the King of Cups. There are so many ways that you're like, there's no dating, there's no love, there's no more. Well, that's because somebody didn't invent the right way. Hopefully they're working on it right now. You know, hopefully some of these ideas are taking root, and we're going to get to enjoy the proceeds of the philosophy and actually sort of think about connection in a very different way. And it's like a very different way that is like kind of creative, and Aquarius good, you know, this is Aquarius. So it's the beginning of the end of like, we have to meet and find the laborious partner of, CEO of my household, and I, whatever that was. The marriage as conquest and acquisition and holding, slavery, the romance that, with a little, just like the Stockholm syndrome, just a little bit of Stockholm syndrome with that romantic love, kind of a way in which women needed men for their survival. So yet you were trapped, right? And so how many generations of that produced a kind of attraction that is just not what attraction needs to be, where people are fully empowered. Even for it's not just women, men that like had to be in this contract in order to have a farm and have offspring to work on that farm, needed to be like with a producing mare when it came to a person, and that had to be approved by like the church people, who that, there's so many things that were involved in compliance for the previous generations that tainted love, so that love was this weird compliant like slavery and need, not based on meeting people at the level where you are and developing together in different ways, and then when you've developed, moving on, but this compulsive sort of partnership that you need because you have to have it in order to have a family and uphold a household and have that household operate so that everything can benefit whatever the offspring are. Like, we're talking about that the Starborn is like some out there way of like experiencing romance and love that is not easy for you to conceive of yet. And by experience romance of love, I mean the sacred. How do you make this a different experience? Well, there's going to be some inventions. There's hope. There's actually a reason for hope. And so when you go within to find your way out, you're not looking at the external circumstances to tell you who you are and what's available to you, because that's damning. That's a bunch of failed video game idiots who like took a hold of like social engineering only to find themselves false gods, embarrassed that they even wake up in the morning. Like, this is a bad situation. But there are people who are creative enough and tools that will enable a world of beautiful new things, including the beautiful thing that you're meant to bring into the world. And you just have to work with that inspiration from within. You move into the world. That inspiration is going to guide you. That's the Hermit. And so this energy says, hey, listen, King of Cups, I love you. I want to offer you this help. You're freaking out about romance. You're taking up all the time with this toxic, ruminating. I want you to walk away from those stories. It's not even what we're going to do. We're going to have a better time than this. And you got to stop thinking about it as if it's fixed in this way as a quality thing, and without it being in this way, it's not of quality. There's something coming in, Starborn. There's something from the stars, something in the way of inspiration, some way in which you're supposed to experience yourself as beautiful and desired and loved and just home and cherished. That it's like a different route to love, a different route to romance, a new romantic story that probably starts with yourself, with the Hermit here, and then it becomes something in the way of like a love story of expression. And then there's these new things that are going to be created that are going to help you with like making that expression known to those who can have ears to hear and understand who you are and can love you, and you can love them. Hermit, you're going to find a new way. There's a Six of Swords. You're going from this hellscape, choppy waters, managing the storms in terms of romance, into like taking action and being like smooth sailing. I'm being guided by the divine. It's all good. I can be confident that those who are meant to love me are going to love me. And those who are not meant to love me are really not going to love me. And that's a beautiful sorting. It's a gift. And even if you're in a hermit phase, you love yourself so much. That alone time is so precious. Your inner nature and your inner world, that makes your voice. Your voice is your homing device, your beacon that you put out there, and that those that are meant to love you find you by. And so this inner nature with the Hermit and going within to find your way out is the path to getting to a better place about all of the stuff that is testing your reality right now. That nature, the nature of nature, we're gonna have storms. The nature of men, we're gonna have idiots, stupid dum-dums who are still in control of resources that are misallocating them at the gate. And you can tell because things are mishandled. Those that have the power to allocate resources were purposed to allocate resources are stupid, stupid, dumb, 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 which is why things aren't running smoothly and they don't look as they should. And so like a very basic thing of like, we can't really fight every battle. 8 of Cups, this belief that you are powerful when no matter what comes up, you bring justice and there is justice and you're on the team of justice and justice, 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 right? So like your guys are like, part of what you're supposed to walk away from is feeling like you have to be the savior, and part of what you have to walk towards is creation and creative co-creation. Like what is it to create and flourish and grow stuff? Natural ecosystem, connection as like a nourishing like thing, combination of things, and then nourishing creation, nourishing creative capacity, having that creative capacity, like do stuff that's cool. And so like your guys are basically saying with this inner nature and this hermit, don't give yourself such a hard time about this time of pulling you out of the social structures that existed but aren't going to exist in the same way anymore. And so since all those social structures have to like down and be rebuilt, being pulled into the hermit, which you're very good at, you've always been a hermit. Lifetime after lifetime, you have been on the mystic, tripping out on the acid of the starborn, what's going on out there. I want to connect with whatever was the origin. So you're doing it, and you're doing it beautifully. And your guys are saying you are like championship mystic of the realms. And they see it and they celebrate it and they love you, and your ancestors that are here for you to engage with your purpose are celebrating every hour of every day that you become and that you grow and that you advance. And this has a lot to do with you sitting by yourself, and instead of cursing that as some kind of like prison sentence, they want you to use it like fertile soil. They want you to understand with the 6 of Swords that you're on a journey. And that journey with that 8 of Swords, like, is about this inner nature, and then that inner nature's correspondence to its relationship to nature. So I want you to see that, like, we're in the 888 portal, the Lion's Gate portal. And I'm sorry that I always have like heat or air conditioning going on in the background. There's a reason for that. That has nothing to do with my being kind of like a jerk about production quality. There's a broken problem with the house I'm renting, with the thermostat not operating in a way that I it's nature. It's the nature of man. It's the nature of the situation. So when we're contending with the nature of a situation that sucks, and the inner nature, so I want you to think about this in terms of like the clarity as being the ascended aspect of an archetype, and then the shadow being the confusion, I don't know, powerless void of the archetype, and all of the ways in which we kind of move from one towards the other and then back again, because that growth is an expansion. So we're negotiating at all times with like trying to find a way to navigate and negotiate and make things happen despite the nature and if you're in economy or cities, like nature of man, despite the nature of things, life on life's terms. The hurricane that like wipes out the village, like that's a thing. But also like your inner nature. So it's like you're managing the inner storms, how you feel, the anxiety, the fear. And then because you have to manage the outer storms because the circumstances suck, right? And so you're always doing this negotiation, and the circumstances don't have to suck, but that's kind of where the inner world influences the outer world, even though the outer world is always influencing the inner world. So I see this like figure 8, this backward and forward between nature and inner nature, nature and inner nature, and like finding that balance. And so you're taking action, always taking action between like inner nature and nature. You're always doing that. You always have to kind of swim in that pool. And so when we take control, when we step into a place of empowerment, especially in the way that we work, when we take charge, King of Swords and the Devil, what's that? That's related to this nature and this inner nature. So let's look at this. Take charge. The only way to stop being anxious about the future, I'm reading this, is to put the work in and create it. If you're not actively planning and participating in your life towards something, then you will find yourself at the mercy of whatever comes your way, powerlessness. Only dead fish go with the flow, and that flow usually takes you to a dump site. See, these cards are like mean, funny, mean. Starborn, things that you can't even imagine that are for you, that have to do with what it means to change course And that's a mental thing before it's ever a physical thing. You know, the science behind manifestation, even though I hate that word and the way people use it, is very real. And it has to do with like this whole notion of making yourself an energetic match for what you're supposed to be. That's real. There's no two ways about it. It's like 100%. Ooh, I just saw a flash of something kind of disgusting. I think I'm not going to engage with it. Yeah, I'm not engaging with it. Okay, so we're going to keep on going. Let's see what this, and I think it's related to this King of Swords and this, the Devil card. Let's go ahead and check it out and see what that's all about. It's change, take charge and change course is exactly the same thing. And so when we become an energetic match for what is meant for us, the pacing is, yeah, there's something here. I'm getting like an interference pattern. I don't play that game. There's going to be a lot of crap going on. You know, like that's the thing. This King of Swords and the Devil, man. We're talking about negative messaging. So like I got hit with a negative message. I got hit with this negative message about something someone was doing. And I've seen like this nefarious something before. And I have really good guardrails around, but it was like funny the way that came in. And I also saw a newsflash as it kind of like, I had that thing and it was like newsflash and I was like, wait, what is this newsflash with that? And then I realized that like, yeah, the King of Swords is going to be about messaging. It's going to be about narratives. It's the word and the narrative and the way that that agreement around like things that we kind of communicate can be, there's like a bondage here with the Devil. The Devil is slavery. That's being enslaved, and that's attachments. Again, what's an attachment? It's this like horrible thing. It follows me around and it savens my, it like kisses my neck and sucks the energy out of me, and a vampire. That's a thought form. Why is there a thought form operating like that? Well, it depends. If it's an actual person, then it's energies that you're having to work something. You have to work your way out of that situation. If it's a thought form, is again like this is so hard to explain. But it's the unconscious, like as something that is manifested through something you are working out, that like you're having an experience of in a personified way. And that's like neutral. It's good or bad, you know, kind of depending on like how you manage it. And so your guys are basically saying, you know, with the Devil card being about slave, like enslaving you. What enslaves you? There are beliefs that enslave you. There are shared beliefs that enslave all of us. Like you have to work for a living. Like that is true and false at the same time. But habits are what we're dealing with when we talk about attachments. Habits of moving your attention in a certain direction and being kind of in that loop. You know, how do you get rid of something that's like an intrusive thought? Like there's something here with that's what the Devil card is about. And so you do have a lot of power. You have a tremendous power over where your attention brings life and where it cuts things off. And it is your attention that does either thing. Think about with people. Think about with like a person who's sitting in the room with you, who you are trying to like not deal with. And so you're just trying to ignore them. You have to stop paying attention to them in order to ignore them. So that's a decision that you make. And so like when we have things that like are habits of attention siphoning, whether it's like the phone that you scroll with, or the person that you let yourself like ruminate about, or the job that you feel like you have to like, you know, give your life to, or else like there's all these things that like slavery and slavery goes with a certain kind of story, because circumstances can enslave us, but they cannot enslave our imagination. They cannot enslave our prayers and our soul. They can only enslave our body at best, and that's temporary when you consider what a free spirit, like what a free spirit, a free mind, and a free soul, and a free imagination, and a free inspiration, like all that stuff. When you get internally free, you are picking up inspiration that leads you elsewhere, and interacting with it in a myriad of ways. And so let's look at this King of Swords, this messages, these messaging, like, you know, somebody can suppress you. Like, not really. No. They're just helping you refine your voice until you're ready to operate in whatever way is going to work. Because that's what trial and error does, and that trial and error makes maturity and strength. And so anything that suppresses you is actually like, I'm seeing like water. You are a force of the river. You are a force of nature. And what wants to express through you is going to express through you. When it comes to finding where your purpose finds, it says your purpose and your alignment, like where that inspiration meets your opportunity. There are forces. And there will always be forces that want to control and suppress your opportunity. And whether that force is a stupid idiot who has like no idea what they're doing, or that force is a stupid government, or, you know, a stupid corporation. But they can't actually do it. The best they can do is suppress you in one area so you grow superhuman strength in another. They can slow your progress in one area so that you become a master and an expert at what it is to develop, so that when there is that crack in the wall or that crack in the stream, and I'm seeing all of these apps pop up with all these opportunities for different types of exposure in different niches, like a whack-a-mole situation where that centralized power cannot stay central no matter what it tries to do, no matter how much that control wants to happen. Because of the cross-pollination, like a voice that is meant to be heard will be heard. So the best somebody can do is make you stronger, develop you in a more, like, they'll just refine that development and refine that development. And so like, even if you are suppressed in one area, you're developing in another, and that new development is going to meet inspiration, and that new inspiration that says, here's how you're going to use your voice differently and it's going to be more effective, is now going to meet opportunity in other places. And so wherever the doors are closing or the suppression exists, there is a buoy, like it pops back up again. And so that's where the Hermit and the Six of Swords is leading you with take action with confidence is your key to success. Don't let the numbers fool you. Those old algorithms and the people that have influence over them this is over for them. And so even though we are in a liminal space of not yet there, continue to develop from that inner world that kind of filters in and makes like headway for your journey to bring that inspiration to opportunity, and your guides are going to do it. So when it comes to this King of Swords messaging, like the oligarchs have all of the stupid idiots have all the power. No, they don't. No, they don't. Okay, they're never going to have all the power. You got the magic. The magic is some ineffable quality that makes you undeniably favored by the divine, undeniably favored by divine influence, undeniably accompanied by divine genius, that King of Cups. There is a King of Cups that loves you and wants to offer you love. And the thing that gets in the way is your stories about how nobody loves you and you can't be loved because of the stupid people over there. And then those other idiots over there, and they hold the power and they're so dumb. And so we all have to suffer. They're so stupid. You know, that's how it can feel when you're in a world where there's no freaking coherence, you know, and you are awake. You're awake and you're aware and you're connected. You've got this magic, but that magic here, you're working on it. Newsflash. Life is seriously temporary. The situations that sort of block you right now are seriously temporary. Your gods and your guides are letting it happen because they need to suppress you in order for you to have that it's like you have to have that perfect bounce. They're putting you somewhere. They're establishing you. There are verses that are true. That which is in you is more powerful than that which is in the world. These structures in the world are false, like ideas about control, where somebody's always like scrambling, hey, calling you up, you know, I know this and I need, you know, like these ways in which these power structures and these power structures of influence and power, like thank goodness they're temporary. And they used to have more hold. I have to cough. There's a blockage being removed from your voice right now because I'm in this space with you. I can kind of feel it. Whenever I cough during channeling, it means a lot to me. So, romantic love. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to your options here. Well, King of Cups, Starborn. What wants to love you in a way that is just completely... There's something here out of the box. There is a new offer of love and there's something, and this is the maiden thing. Like I see like a reset button on like that quality that you have. Your essence. I'm like, what is that quality? And they're like, essence. So like, you know, this Calabunga dude, you're gonna start over. Born again you. I see like in the water, out of the water, like almost like I'm seeing Christian stuff. Like baptism, starborn, like this mystic, this healing. Think about love and think about 8th house, erotic stuff in a new way. So like, what does that even mean? I don't even know. Sex, erotic capital. Stalking in the underworld is weird because that keeps on coming up around this, like, you know, in the absence of ways to meet people, and people are just like saturated with like this weird fiction of like, you know, AI technology, and like there's a cheapening of erotic capital. There's a cheapening of romance. There's this thing that happens where like it all just, it's so gross. Like I don't even know. Let's make it PG 18 or whatever, like the rating. I'm like, why am I worried about that? But I, you know, I almost want to say that there's something to talk about here with the romantic love. 8th house intimacy. I gotta work on my voice right now. My throat chakra's kind of like feeling it. Yeah. There are things that like are gross and think that they can control you. That's this King of Swords and the Devil. Old habits of feeling like other people have more control than they do. Let's see what that is since I've got cards in my hand. Because magic, romantic love, belief, the maiden, the starborn, the 8th house of intimacy, sex and erotic capital. Okay, yeah, let's say what it is. Right now, there's no imagination around like the beauty of people falling in love anymore. It's like that story, those love stories, those conditioning love stories about like acquisition, like get the guy, get the girl, holdings, marry them, lock it down forever, and like that's like stability and like fulfillment of life, and like all of that stuff being, you know, like kind of falling away, and something being born that's kind of like Aquarius, the starborn, a new way of relating, new ways of relating, dating apps that are more like, you know, ecosystem friendly in terms of like bringing the right people together to create together instead of trying to sort of like dominance and submission, and then like, you know, sex being something new that comes of that, and that's kind of like, I don't know what that means. Okay, I can't see it all the way. I can kind of imagine that people who have like special interests in common and like to work on stuff together were like, you know, that's like, you know, kind of attractive, whatever. But that's weird because it's like mixing stuff. So there are things that are new that I can't see with that starborn quality. And belief here is like, you know, stop thinking that anything is foreclosed. Stop thinking that there are no options. There are definitely options. Have confidence in that, like, your lovability. With the romantic love there, and the magic that, you know, is possible here with this offer of love, with that Knight of Cups and the King of Cups is sitting there being like, yeah, I want to work with you. I know your commitment is being tested. That's because I'm not going to work with you with all of this old stories of your powerlessness. I'm not here to prop those stories up. King of Swords, again, that's going to be like the narrative, this conjunction, figure 8. Move out of that shadow and into this expanded place around what's available to you, and put down those beliefs about things that are not, especially with age, even health. Quicksilver. That's an interesting energy. Let me look at that. So we're between two worldviews. That means we're right here and we're going over here. That means we're in the narrow bridge. So we're at the beginning of the end. We are about to be squeezed into this very narrow, uncomfortable place of uncertainty and fear and what's going to happen, and the world is ending, and oh my gosh, and screaming and fear. Right? Because think about this. Like, and I don't want you to like, it's not like, you know, fear mongering. Like, look around and have a moment. Okay, look around and just, you know, we're going to call the spade and say things are crumbling, because they very much are. And so when we think about this unsustainable nature My nails are in such bad shape. Sorry about that. You know, we think about this unsustainable nature that we are like facing this very narrow path. We have to go through this narrow path. Performance into authentic expression, when performance is what we've been conditioned since we were 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. If you do this, you're going to get that. Nope, no more of that. No contract there. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to overcome this? I don't know what to do. I don't have anything to offer. The contract is broken. If I do this, that's not going to happen. What am I going to do? This is a narrow bridge. But what's over here? Oh my gosh, this is being created. That's being created. I can create in these spaces. Oh my gosh, now I'm a success. So we have to have belief that, like, even though we're in the hermit place and we're moving Six of Swords from choppy, stormy waters into calm, smooth sailing, from oh my gosh, I don't know what's gonna happen, mystery, to like, wow, new things. That's what we're doing here. This is this conjunction that we're at. And so belief in what is on offer means that you're not believing that the Eight of Cups was all that there ever was, and that's just too bad. There's romantic love here. Knight of Swords is going to be your nasty messaging. The Devil is going to be, you have no choice. You're a slave. The oligarchs, the global elites, their stupidity is going to ruin everything, and you just have to watch it from a knowing distance. That's not true. They made stupid games with what it means to connect. There's going to be innovation around what it means to connect, because we have to. Because we are at this point where none of what was going on was working, and everything's cheapened and it's not enjoyable anymore. We need new things, new ways. So belief is in your gifts and your talents and your strong connection to source, your ability to channel those gifts and talents into the earth, into the world, and that there'll be a place for them. You're going to take action, and you're going to do so by intuition, by being guided from within this hermit space into a more open space. And so what it means for you to be guided in that open space is to take action in that open space. And that's about romantic love. Why is it about romantic love? Because we're looking at romantic love a little differently. This is going to be a long one. I'm going to break it into two so that we can digest it. But okay, so let's do that. So part one, we've done part one with kind of identifying that this is a bit of a process with your commitment being tested, but with the King of Cups being like, hey mama, I love you, or hey mister, you're my mister, like instead of it being just a dark, dank, miserable opportunities, like look at these, there's the horrible process of the dating apps, the like ridiculously like stupid, like badly conceived social media, like the economy, the job opportunities, like that's not offers of love, that's disempowerment. But where we have the King of Cups being like, hey, I've got something for you, we have to walk away from that other stuff. Those stories of disempowerment can't be it. And so if you walk away from those stories of disempowerment, where are we going? That's where we're going to pick this up. And so let's hold this here and then take a break and then come back whenever you're ready.